All right, so today we're going to talk about topic 2B, and topic 2B is finding slope given 2 points now. So we're going to be given two lattice points. So these aren't just, we're not just going to be giving graphs, we're going to give the lattice points, the coordinates of these, and we're going to be able to calculate slope just given the coordinates. So remember, you got to remember what slope is, and we represent slope with m, which also means change in y over change in x. Okay, so slope, which is m, equals change in y over change in x. So how much does the y values change? How much does the x values change? Over how much does the x values change? So looking at this first example here, I have the graph here because we're going to look at that how we did from topic 2a. But we're going to look at how do we calculate this from given the coordinates. So looking at this first one, we need to look at it says change in y is on top, which means we need to look at the y values. So for here, it is the 5 and the 8. So we need to look at how does that change. Now, when we do this, we need to look at the difference. What is the difference between 5 and 8? So what is 5 minus 8? And the reason why we do 5 minus 8 is because we're looking for how much does it change. So think about temperature. If it was 55 degrees and it changed to 85 degrees, how would you find the difference in those temperatures? How would you find how much it changed? Well, you would do, some people say, oh, I just take 85 minus 55. Well, that's another way of doing it. That's what different. You're subtracting them. So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to subtract this. So we're going to do 5 minus 8 for the change in y. And I'm going to write change in y over top of that. And then for the change in x, we're going to do 3 minus 5. So 3 minus 5 here. I took the first one minus the second one. We're figuring out how much does it change? What's the difference between the two? So 3 minus 5, which is our change in x. So when you do this, 5 minus 8 is negative 3. So that's our change in y. So I'm going to write this, our m equals negative 3 over our change in x. So 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. So I'm going to write that negative 2 is our change in x. So that goes in the bottom for our slope. Now, a negative 3 divided by a negative 2. We got to make sure we simplify our slopes always. We always want to simplify them down. So negative 3 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 3 halves, because a negative divided by a negative makes a positive. So for the slope, this one is 3 halves. If you look at the graph and you make your slope triangle, okay, I'm going to make that slope triangle over on the graph. You can look that we go over 2 to the right, so that is a plus 2. So that is our change in x. And then you see you go up 3, which is a plus 3. Which is our change in y. So that would be 3 over 2, which is the exactly same thing that we did. Now, you might be like, does it matter the order that I do the coordinates in? No, but you need to make sure you stay consistent in which one you subtract. Okay, so if I could also flip this, and I could do 5, 8 as the first one, and 3, 5. Okay, 5. So doing the change in y, you would do 8 minus, you could have done 8 minus 5, which gets you a positive 3. And you could have done 5 minus 3, which gets you a positive 2. Okay? And that would still be 3 over 2, which is another answer. So there's a couple ways to do this, but make sure if you do 5, 8 first, you always do 5. You're going to do that, or 8, you're going to start with the 8, and you're going to start with that y value. You're going to also start with that x value when you subtract. So make sure you just stay consistent on that. The coordinates you can flip around, but you should always simplify, and it should always get you the same answer. Okay, so looking at the next one. I have negative 1, 1, and 1, negative 5. So remember, slope is change in y over change in x. So we're going to look at the y values. So 1 and negative 5. And we're going to subtract those. So 1 minus, it's the difference. Now we still need to write minus a negative 5. So 1 minus a negative 5. You need that negative sign for that 5 still, because we're minusing the whole value. The signs just don't go away. You got to make sure you keep every sign. So then we're going to do that for this. So the change in y, 1 minus a negative 5 also means 1 plus 5, which is 6. Okay? So that is our change in y. Now looking at the bottom, for the change in x, we're going to do negative 1 minus 1. Now be very careful here. Negative 1 minus 1 is going to get you a negative 2. So when writing this out, change in y over change in x, this is our slope, this is our m value. Okay? We're going to have 6 over negative 2. 6 over negative 2. Now that reduces. Okay? A positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay? 6 divided by 2 is 3. So our slope is negative 3 for this one. And if you check from your using your slope triangle, you would get the same thing on this graph. All right. Here's one now. I want you guys to try this one yourselves. When you think you got an answer, resume the video. All right, so looking at this one, I put the graph here for just to help, so in case you want to check with your slope triangle, but I'm not even going to use the slope triangle here. So change in y, we're going to do 4 minus negative 2. 4 minus a negative 2. Make sure you keep that negative sign with that negative 2. Okay? And then for the change in x, we're going to do negative 2 minus negative 2. You're always subtracting just exactly what those values are. So for the change in y, 4 minus a negative 2 gets us 4 plus 2, which is 6. And then so that would be our change in y. So I'm going to go ahead and write that below. So for change in y over change in x, which is our m, so change in y was 6. Now, a negative 2 minus a negative 2. Be very careful. That ends up turning to a negative 2 plus 2. Okay? So negative 2 plus 2 is 0. If you need to, use a calculator. Please make sure you're doing that. So then you get, that goes in our change of x. So we're going to have 6 divided by 0. Now, we can never divide by 0. It's not possible. So this one is, there is no, the slope for this is, if you divide by 0, is undefined. We cannot say what the slope is here. Okay? That's what it is when you divide by 0. It's undefined. So that is our slope. That is our m value for this one. And that is a vertical line. So whenever you see a vertical line, we're going to have an undefined slope. That's just how it's going to be because the change in x is not occurring. Our x values are staying the same. All right, last one here. This one we want you to find the slope between the 2 points below. Come to class with this one ready to go for this is where we'll pick up at class.